Hello everyone, this video tells the story of visionary ex-husband while the king bars manipulated his mistress's sears to hem her and control her. It's really crazy and interesting story. Your opinion in the comments. I enjoy your watching.
My ex-husband, while behind bars, manipulated his lover's sister to harm me and control me. I never imagined I'd be the type to share my story on the internet, but here I am. I guess I need advice, or maybe just a place to vent. My name is Sarah, I'm 32, and I've been married to Mark, 34, for 10 years. We met in college during our sophomore year. Mark was charming, intelligent, and had a great sense of humor. We hit it off immediately and started dating soon after. Our relationship seemed perfect, and our friends often commented on how well-suited we were for each other. Mark graduated with a degree in business administration and quickly climbed the corporate ladder. He landed a job at a prestigious company and worked hard to provide for us. I pursued a career in teaching, which I loved. We bought a house, adopted a dog named Max, and lived what seemed like an idyllic life. We had our ups and downs, but overall our marriage was solid. Or so I thought. Mark's company had a strict hierarchy, and his boss, Laura, was a formidable woman. She was known for her no-nonsense attitude and her ability to get things done. Laura was in her early 40s, a powerful presence in the office, and she and Mark worked closely together. I never thought much of it. After all, it was work, and Mark often spoke highly of her. Things started to change about a year ago. Mark began working late more often, sometimes not coming home until well after midnight. He explained that the company was going through a rough patch and needed everyone to put in extra hours. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? We had always trusted each other implicitly, but soon his behavior became more erratic. He was always on his phone, and I noticed he became defensive when I asked about his work. The intimacy in our relationship waned, and we grew more distant. One evening, while Mark was out working late, I decided to do some cleaning. I stumbled upon an unfamiliar shirt in the laundry, a woman's blouse. It was expensive, something I knew I hadn't bought. My heart sank, and a cold dread settled over me. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it belonged to a colleague. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. A few weeks later, while Mark was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a message. My curiosity got the better of me, and I glanced at the screen. The message was from Laura, and it was explicit. My hands trembled as I read it, realizing that my worst fears were true. Mark was having an affair with his boss. I confronted him that night. He didn't deny it. Instead, he confessed, saying it had been going on for over a year. He claimed he loved me, that the affair meant nothing, and he begged for forgiveness. I was shattered. My world, my trust, everything I believed in was crumbling around me. In the weeks that followed, I discovered more about the affair. It wasn't just physical, they had an emotional connection too. They traveled together for business, stayed in luxury hotels, and even had a secret apartment. Mark had been living a double life. One night, while I was trying to process everything, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Jake, a colleague of Mark's. Jake revealed that he had suspected the affair for months and had seen them together on several occasions. He told me he was worried about Mark's behavior and wanted to make sure I was okay. Jake became a confidant, someone I could talk to about the betrayal and my crumbling marriage. As I dug deeper, I uncovered more shocking details. Mark and Laura had been embezzling money from the company. They used their affair as a cover for their illicit activities, thinking no one would suspect a thing. I felt like I was living in a twisted soap opera. Not only had my husband betrayed me, but he was also involved in criminal activities. I didn't know what to do. Should I go to the authorities, confront Laura, try to salvage my marriage? Every option seemed overwhelming. I felt trapped in a nightmare with no clear way out. The betrayal, the lies, the deceit, it was all too much to bear. I was lost, and I needed help to navigate this mess. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't trust Mark anymore, but a part of me still loved him and wanted to believe that we could work things out. However, the more I uncovered, the more I realized that our marriage was built on a foundation of lies. In an unexpected turn of events, I received a visit from Detective Emily Roberts. She introduced herself as part of a special investigations unit looking into corporate fraud. Apparently, Mark and Laura's embezzlement had not gone unnoticed. The company's internal audit had flagged several discrepancies, and Emily was leading the investigation. She asked me what I knew about Mark's activities and if I had any evidence that could help their case. It was a surreal moment. Here I was, dealing with the personal betrayal of my husband, and now I was being asked to assist in a criminal investigation. Emily was professional but compassionate. She understood the emotional turmoil I was going through and assured me that they would do everything in their power to bring Mark and Laura to justice. Jake continued to be a supportive friend. He confided in me that he had his own reasons for wanting to see justice served. He had been working at the company for years and had seen how Mark and Laura's actions were affecting everyone. Jake had a younger sister, Lily, who had recently started working at the company. He feared that the toxic environment created by Mark and Laura would harm her career. With Jake's support, I decided to take a stand. I provided Detective Roberts with all the information I had gathered. The messages, the receipts, the evidence of their affair and embezzlement, it was all laid out for the investigation. Emily assured me that they were building a strong case and that Mark and Laura would face the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, I tried to piece my life back together. It was difficult to face the reality of my marriage, but I knew I had to move forward. I focused on my work and leaned on my friends and family for support. Mark, on the other hand, continued to spiral. He became increasingly desperate, trying to win back my trust while also attempting to cover his tracks. One night, I received another unexpected call, this time from Laura's husband, Tom. He had found out about the affair and was devastated. Tom and I met for coffee to discuss the situation. He was a kind and gentle man, utterly blindsided by his wife's betrayal. We shared our pain, and in a strange way, it was comforting to know that I wasn't alone in this mess. Tom revealed that he had hired a private investigator to follow Laura. The investigator had gathered substantial evidence of the affair and the embezzlement. Tom handed me a file, thick with documents and photographs. It was more than enough to ensure that Laura and Mark would face legal repercussions. With all this new information, the investigation moved quickly. Emily and her team arrested Mark and Laura, charging them with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The company issued a statement, distancing itself from their actions and reassuring employees that steps were being taken to prevent future misconduct. Mark's arrest was a turning point for me. It was the end of a chapter, but also the beginning of a new one. I filed for divorce, determined to reclaim my life and move forward. The process was painful, but it was also liberating. I realized that I deserved better, that I deserved to be happy and free from lies. In the aftermath, I continued to stay in touch with Jake and Tom. They became close friends, and we supported each other through the healing process. Jake's sister, Lily, thrived at the company once the toxic influence of Mark and Laura was removed. Detective Emily Roberts kept me updated on the case, and I found solace in knowing that justice was being served. Just as I started to feel that things were settling down, I received a shocking call from Tom. Laura had been in a terrible accident. She was driving home late at night when her car veered off the road and crashed into a tree. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Tom and I rushed to the hospital, where we found out that Laura had sustained severe injuries. She was in a coma, and the doctors were unsure if she would ever wake up. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. Despite everything she had done, I wouldn't wish this fate on anyone. Tom was a wreck, and I did my best to support him during this difficult time. As the days turned into weeks, Laura remained in a coma. The investigation continued, and the evidence against Mark and Laura piled up. The media caught wind of the story, and it became a sensational scandal. Mark and Laura's names were splashed across headlines, their reputations destroyed. One day, while visiting Laura at the hospital, I noticed something strange. Her medical chart indicated that she had high levels of a certain drug in her system. I recognized the name of the drug from my research into the embezzlement case. It was the same drug Mark had been using to manipulate the company's finances. My heart raced as I realized that Laura's accident might not have been an accident at all. I contacted Detective Roberts immediately. She promised to look into it and assured me that they would get to the bottom of this new development. The thought that Mark might have had something to do with Laura's accident was horrifying, but it also made sense. He was desperate, and he had already proven that he would do anything to protect himself. As the investigation into Laura's accident unfolded, more shocking details came to light. It turned out that Mark had indeed tampered with Laura's car. hoping to silence her before she could turn on him. The discovery added another layer of charges against him, and it became clear that he would spend a long time in prison. Despite everything, I couldn't shake the feeling of sadness and loss. My marriage, my trust, and my sense of security had all been shattered. But I knew I had to keep moving forward. I focused on my teaching career, finding solace in helping my students learn and grow. Jake, Tom, and I continued to support each other, forming a new kind of family through our shared experiences. One day, while visiting Laura at the hospital, I received a call from Detective Roberts. She had good news. Mark had been convicted on all charges and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. Justice had been served, and a sense of closure washed over me. As I left the hospital, I realized that I was finally free from the lies, the deceit, and the betrayal. I was ready to start a new chapter in my life, one filled with honesty, trust, and hope. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to build a future that was true to myself. After the dust settled from Mark's conviction, I needed a fresh start. I decided to switch to remote work, which gave me the flexibility and distance I needed to heal. The transition was smoother than I expected. My teaching skills translated well to online education, and soon enough, I was fully immersed in this new way of working. Life was slowly getting back on track. Jake and Tom became a significant part of my support system. Both had been through the ringer with me and had their own reasons for wanting to move forward. Our shared experiences had created a bond, and I cherished their friendship. However, things became complicated when both Jake and Tom began to express romantic interest in me. It started subtly. Jake would linger on our video calls, chatting about everything and nothing. He sent thoughtful messages and little gifts to cheer me up. Tom, on the other hand, was more reserved but equally attentive. He would check in on me regularly, offering help with anything I needed. His quiet strength and gentle nature were comforting. As flattered as I wasn't ready to jump into another relationship. My heart was still mending, and I valued their friendship too much to risk complicating things. But it soon became clear that Jake and Tom were not just being friendly, they were competing for my affection. Jake was the first to make his feelings clear. He asked me out on a virtual date, a gesture both sweet and awkward. I appreciated his honesty and told him I needed time to think. Tom's approach was different. He invited me to a small dinner at his place, promising a relaxing evening away from everything. It was hard to say no to either of them, but I knew I had to be careful. While I was navigating this new emotional territory, another challenge emerged. One evening, I received a call from my old friend, Lisa. She had heard about everything that had happened and wanted to catch up. We arranged a video call, and it felt good to reconnect with someone who knew me before all the chaos. During our conversation, Lisa mentioned something that sent chills down my spine. She had seen Laura's sister Amanda at a local cafe, and Amanda was acting strangely. She was ranting about how Laura's accident wasn't an accident and how someone needed to pay for what happened to her sister. Lisa said Amanda seemed unhinged and obsessed with finding out the truth. The next day, I received an anonymous email with a subject line that read, "Justice for Laura." It contained a cryptic message warning me to watch my back. My heart raced as I realized that Amanda might be targeting me, blaming me for Laura's condition. I contacted Detective Roberts, who assured me they would look into it, but the fear lingered. Jake and Tom were both aware of the situation and became even more protective. Their concern was comforting but also overwhelming. I felt like I was constantly being watched, and the tension was starting to take its toll. One evening, while I was on a call with Jake, I heard a noise outside my window. I glanced out and saw a shadow moving near the bushes. My heart pounded as I ended the call and dialed 911. The police arrived quickly, but whoever it was had already disappeared. They found nothing but left a patrol car to keep an eye on the house. The incident shook me deeply. I was already dealing with so much, and now I had to worry about someone stalking me. Jake and Tom insisted on staying with me in shifts to make sure I wasn't alone. Their rivalry took a back seat to their genuine concern for my safety. Weeks passed, and the tension slowly eased. The police found no further evidence of a threat, and Amanda seemed to have vanished. I started to relax, thinking the worst was behind me. But then another development arose. One afternoon, while I was teaching an online class, my internet connection abruptly cut out. Frustrated, I called my service provider only to be told there was no outage in my area. I rebooted my router, checked all the connections, but nothing worked. Then I noticed something odd. My modem had been tampered with. Panic set in as I realized that someone had been in my house. I called the police again, and they confirmed that the device had been deliberately sabotaged. This time they found fingerprints Amanda's. She had broken in while I was asleep, and who knew what else she had done? I was assigned a protective detail, and my house was thoroughly searched. Nothing else seemed to be disturbed, but the violation left me feeling vulnerable and exposed. Amanda was clearly unhinged and determined to make me pay, but the police still couldn't locate her. Amidst all this chaos, my relationships with Jake and Tom grew more complicated. The stress and fear brought us closer, but it also highlighted the differences in how they handled the situation. Jake was proactive, constantly checking in and taking charge. Tom was more supportive, offering a quiet presence and a shoulder to lean on. I felt torn between them, unsure of what I wanted or needed. As if things weren't complicated enough, I received another blow. One evening, I came home to find a letter on my doorstep. It was from Mark. He had written it from prison, pouring out his remorse and begging for my forgiveness. He claimed that he had changed, that he was a different person now, and that he wanted to make amends. The letter was filled with apologies and promises, but all I could feel was anger and pain. Reading Mark's letter brought back a flood of emotions. I thought I had moved on, but his words reopened old wounds. I shared the letter with Jake and Tom, hoping for some clarity. Jake was furious, wanting to confront Mark, while Tom was more measured, suggesting that I focus on my healing rather than Mark's manipulations. In the midst of all this turmoil, I received another disturbing call from Lisa. She had found out that Amanda was in contact with some unsavory characters, people who could be dangerous. Lisa warned me to be careful, and I felt my anxiety levels spike again. Days later, my worst fears were realized. Amanda was spotted near my house, and this time she wasn't alone. She had brought along a couple of men who looked like they meant business. The police were called immediately, and a chase ensued. They managed to catch one of the men, but Amanda and the other guy escaped. Interrogating the captured man, the police discovered that Amanda had hired him to scare me into confessing that I had something to do with Laura's accident. It was clear that Amanda was losing her grip on reality and becoming more dangerous by the day. Detective Roberts advised me to stay with someone else for a while, so I moved in with Jake temporarily. Tom wasn't thrilled about it, but he understood the necessity. Living with Jake was both comforting and stressful. The proximity brought our feelings to the forefront, but I still wasn't ready to make a decision. Then came the final straw. One night, while I was alone in Jake's apartment, the power went out. At first, I thought it was a simple outage, but then I heard footsteps outside the door. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The operator stayed on the line with me as I locked myself in the bathroom. The police arrived quickly and apprehended Amanda and her accomplice. She had broken into the building's electrical room and cut the power, hoping to scare me into leaving. The terror in her eyes was palpable as they led her away in handcuffs. She screamed that I had ruined her life and that I would pay for what I did to her sister. The ordeal left me shaken but also relieved. Amanda was finally in custody, and I could start to breathe easier. The police assured me that she would face charges for her actions, and I hoped this would be the end of the nightmare. With Amanda behind bars, I tried to rebuild my life once more. Jake and Tom continued to support me, but their rivalry became more apparent. I knew I had to make a decision, but I was still conflicted. Both men had been there for me, but in different ways. Jake was passionate and proactive, while Tom was calm and steady. One evening, while having dinner with both Jake and Tom, I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. I thanked them both for their unwavering support and explained how much they meant to me. I also told them that I needed more time to figure out what I wanted, and I hoped they would understand. Jake looked disappointed but nodded in understanding. Tom, ever the gentleman, offered a reassuring smile. They agreed to give me the space I needed, and we decided to focus on our friendship for the time being. As the weeks passed, I found solace in my work and the support of my friends. I started to see a therapist to help me process everything that had happened. Slowly but surely, I began to heal. I realized that I didn't need to rush into another relationship. What I needed was time to rebuild myself. Jake and Tom remained close friends, and our bond grew stronger. They both respected my need for space and continued to be there for me in their own ways. I felt grateful to have such supportive people in my life. Then, just as things were starting to settle down, I received a call from Detective Roberts. She had some startling news. During Amanda's interrogation, she revealed that Mark had been orchestrating everything from prison. He had been manipulating Amanda, feeding her lies about Laura's accident, and pushing her to target me. Mark's twisted plan was to create enough chaos to force me to reach out to him for help. He wanted to control me even from behind bars. The realization that Mark was still trying to manipulate my life filled me with a mixture of anger and fear. Detective Roberts assured me that they were taking steps to ensure Mark would face additional charges for his actions, but the damage had already been done. I couldn't believe that Mark's influence had extended so far. It was a harsh reminder of the toxic control he had wielded over me for so long. I knew I needed to take back my power and reclaim my life fully. I decided to take a break from work and travel for a while. I needed to distance myself from the chaos and find a sense of peace. Jake and Tom supported my decision, and we promised to stay in touch. I set off on my journey, visiting places I had always wanted to see and spending time reflecting on my life. During my travels, I met new people and experienced new things. I started to feel like myself again, free from the shadows of my past. I realized that my happiness didn't depend on anyone else but me. I had the strength to move forward and build a life that I wanted. Months later, I returned home, feeling rejuvenated and ready to face the future. Jake and Tom were waiting for me at the airport, their smiles lighting up the room. I hugged them both, grateful for their unwavering support. As we drove back to my place, I felt a sense of closure. The past was behind me, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I knew there would still be challenges, but I was confident in my ability to overcome them. One evening, while we were all having dinner together, I realized something important. My journey wasn't just about finding love or moving on from my past. It was about discovering who I was and what I wanted from life. I had grown stronger, more resilient, and more determined to live on my own terms. As I sat there, surrounded by friends who had become family, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The road had been long and difficult, but I had come out the other side stronger and wiser. I knew that whatever the future held, I was ready to face it with courage and grace. And so, my story continues. It's far from perfect, but it's mine. I've learned to cherish the moments of joy, to find strength in the face of adversity, and to always keep moving forward. Life is unpredictable, and the twists and turns can be challenging, but they also make us who we are. As I look ahead, I know there will be more challenges, more surprises, and more opportunities for growth. But I also know that I have the strength to face them, surrounded by people who care about me and support me, and that, more than anything, gives me hope for the future.
Hello, is really amazing and interesting story. What do you think? Write comment, put likes or class of channel, Instagram and Discord. Good luck!